Welcome to another episode of The Modern People Leader. This is going to be, I think, episode 90, and this is our first riff session or, one-on-one session with just me and Steven for the year. So, what's up, man?
I think this is our second or our third in-person or recording where we're together like this.
I think this is our third in-person podcast where we're not doing it over Zoom.
Wow.
So
and
yeah,
it's been like a year and a half, 2 years since our last one.
It's been a while. I guess to give the listeners some inside baseball for what's been happening in this room for the last 20 minutes, I've been trying to figure out how to set up the ring light. We were making sure it was positioned correctly, trying to figure out how to set up these mics. But I think we have it all figured out.
I think we've got all the technical things ready to go, and we've got some pretty exciting things to talk about today.
I agree.
But first,
good news stories.
Yeah, let's do it.
And I saw that you already had something, so I'm going to let you go first.
Yeah, so my good news story is that we are actively talking to sponsors, potential sponsors. So organizations that want to sponsor the Modern People Leader, which, at 90 episodes deep, having a formal business entity and now talking to potential sponsors is just, it's mind-blowing. But that's my good news story for the week.
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback off of that good news. So for the first, I guess, year and a half, we would rarely get anybody reaching out to us asking if they could come onto the show. And here in the last couple of months, I don't know what's happening. But
something's changed.
Something's changed. It feels like we're picking up momentum. And for the last 10 days, I've gotten at least one or two DMs from people wanting to come onto the show, which is great. And this is also an encouragement for listeners. If you want to come onto the show, reach out. We're booked up through the middle of the year, but, we're looking for guests for the back half of the year. And it just feels...
Wait, did I hear that right? We're booked up through the middle of the year.
Yeah.
6 months. We're booked solid.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And, I was just looking at the calendar this morning with my wife, and I think we're gonna record like 11 or 12 podcasts between today and next month on the 13th. So
wow.
Yeah.
And we're considering, because of that, expanding the number of shows we do, right?
Yeah.
Per month.
Yeah. So the plan will be in don't get mad if this doesn't happen, but the plan right now is to publish 6 episodes a month. So we'll be moving from 4 a month to 6 a month. So hopefully that's exciting to listeners. I know for me it's exciting. That means we're going to be recording many more episodes. But I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's definitely exciting to me. Looking back at 2023, we didn't do as many. Looking back at 2022, we didn't do as many episodes as we did our first year. We took about a month break because we had gone hard in the paint.
It might have been like a month and a half.
Okay. But I feel like the quality of conversations definitely took a step up. I think that is large in part to us figuring out our format, our formula.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, year one, we were just trying to figure it out. To be honest, we're still just figuring it out. We're not experts by any means, but, we've learned a lot.
Yeah, and it's funny because we have gotten a couple questions now, like, how did you get to 88 episodes?
Yeah.
And it just was diving in.
Yeah. Just doing it, just putting it out there.
So, yeah, again, for those out there, if you're thinking about starting a podcast, highly recommend it. Of all of my purpose portfolio, which we're going to talk about later, this is a huge part of it, the Modern People Leader, recording podcasts, and I can see that part of my purpose portfolio. You can imagine a pie, like this segment getting bigger.
Oh yeah,
and bigger. So
definitely for me too. As of the first week of November, I've been doing this full time for the first time ever, and I'm really happy. I feel extremely fulfilled. It's fun, dedicating all of my time to the podcast. And for people who I guess maybe just started listening to the show, or even for those who have been listening to the show since day one, I don't think we've ever really talked about why we started the podcast or how that even came about?
We haven't gone into detail. I think we've referenced it, and it's a little confusing for us because we, as you may have heard on the show, we usually have a prep call. So there's two types of guests that we have on. There are those that want to meet us. They want to know what the Modern People is all about. And so we typically have like a quick 30-minute prep call, and that's where we identify like what we want to talk about, what's front of mind for the potential guests. But then we also have guests who want to work asynchronously.
Yeah.
And I think it's representative of the world today. I think so many people work asynchronously. They're like, yep, just let me know what you want to talk about. Here's some ideas. And so we talk a lot about our origin story in those prep calls.
Yeah.
And so in my head, I feel like you all know the story, but
it feels like we're telling it every other day.
It really does. It really does. So why don't we revisit it?
Yeah. So if we rewind all the way back to, I want to say it was 2015, I'm between my junior and senior year of college. I'm an advertising major at the University of Texas. I know that I want to work in tech, but that's the extent of my plan. It sounds sexy, it sounds fun, but that's all I really know. So Steven catches wind of this, and for those of you listening that don't know, Steven's my first cousin once removed, so he's my dad's first cousin. So he's a bit older than me, and for most of my childhood, Steven was working either in New York or Dallas, and I was in Austin. So I only met him probably a handful of times, maybe less at this point. And he catches wind that I want to go into tech. So he had just started Workify, I don't know, maybe like 6 months, a year prior.
It was months, yeah. It wasn't even a year yet.
Yeah, so he was looking for an intern to help out. So I joined Workify, and I think the way that Steven came to me with the opportunity, he was like, hey, would you want to like trial this? Like, we'll give this like a few weeks, and if it goes well, then we'll go from there. So I intern at Workify. I end up staying there for 5 years, and I'm doing everything from customer success to a bit of SDR work, eventually managed a team of SDRs, and then my biggest responsibility was marketing. And as a recent graduate, I had no idea what I was doing, which makes for great learning. You know, I learned the full range of B2B marketing, from marketing operations to SEO to AdWords, you name it. You know, and I was even taking discovery calls, even whenever I was a marketer. Like if, you know, somebody on the sales team was busy, I would take discovery calls.
Well, and I think back then the primary like software as a service sales model was you have SDR, sales development representatives, that were
taking the discos,
taking the disc, finding leads, qualifying them, and taking the initial calls, the discovery calls. And then you had on the marketing side, for anything that came in through the marketing funnel, you had MDRs.
Yeah.
And back then those were two separate roles. Today, sometimes they're separate, sometimes they're together. And so we didn't have money for MDRs. No. So I was like, Daniel, you're the MDR.
Yeah.
So you need to start meeting with these HR executives, HR leaders that, you know, were interested in our services.
Yeah. Yeah. And I really enjoyed it. And my biggest takeaway from that experience working at Workify was that I really like people in HR. I really like people. I can tell that almost every HR leader I've ever spoken with is just a good person. They care about their people. They're trying to do good work. And that was like my biggest takeaway coming out of that experience. So I leave Workify, I go to Udacity, and 2 months into my role there, COVID hits. You know, a couple of months go by, and I'm like, wow, like, you know, COVID's not letting up. It feels like this might be the situation for a while, for the foreseeable future. And that's when I sort of had this epiphany that leaders, you know, executives, boards are going to be looking to their people team and their people leaders more than ever before. And that's when I decided I want to learn as much as I possibly can about the people space, the HR space. And I didn't know how to go about that. I was like, you know, maybe I'm going to start my own tech company one day. But for now, I'm just going to start reaching out to people and picking their brain and hearing what's on their mind. So I started reaching out to people just to set up like, you know, 10, 15-minute calls. Turns out people don't want to meet if there's no purpose. So I had like varying levels of success just even getting people on the phone. And that's when I had the idea for the podcast. And I think that's when I reached out to you.
Yeah. And you're like, hey, I think we should launch a podcast together. And I was like, absolutely not. Like, why would I do this with you? I don't listen to podcasts. I consume content totally different. And I pushed back, and, Daniel just was relentless. And I think you pitched me 2 or 3 times. In parallel, we were also talking about this notion of a new way of selling software, the role that dark social plays in sales, podcasts as a channel. And the more I understood like the why you were interested in launching a podcast called The Modern People Leader, and just like what we could learn, I remember getting really excited about it. And so, but it wasn't until like the 3rd or 4th conversation that I was like, all right, I'll commit to a year, but I think we need to have clear goals and we need to get aligned. And you were like, all right, let's record an episode a week. And I remember thinking, fuck, that's impossible. There's no way we're going to get that done.
Yeah.
And we did. And so for me, going back to my decision for why I thought it made sense to invest time, as a dad, as an entrepreneur, I have a lot of competing priorities. And so I wanted to make sure that there was like, I had a personal why. And what I realize is that I've spent like 20 years now in the HR space as a consultant, then corporate HR person, and now as an HR tech founder. And what I believe for most of those years, HR, it's been a thankless job. And so much critical work is done every single day that if I could help contribute to a platform that could amplify the voice of the HR executive and could, I guess, bring to the layperson like everything that's involved, like that was enough.
Yeah.
But the other part is that in HR, usually HR is more diverse than the rest of the organization that HR sits in. And I think there's a lot of reasons that play into that. And so I personally have had the benefit of having learned so much from so many diverse individuals from historically underrepresented groups. And I wanted to also kind of cast a light on that as well, that there are women, that there are people of color, that they're you name it, we've got it in HR, and every single person is contributing to the innovation that's happening. And so that was like the second component, just being Latinx myself, like that was also really important.
Yeah. And I guess like the one added layer that I'll mention, I think that we had a feeling that the world of work was going to change, but I don't think that we knew the extent to which that was going to happen. Like if we look back 2 years ago when we started this podcast, the world of work was so different.
Oh my gosh.
And it's just been really fun to be able to sort of chronicle all of the changes that have happened over the last 24, 36. I don't even know how long it's been really, but however long it's been, it's been really fun.
It's been a minute.
Yeah. Yeah. And it feels like every other month there's something new to talk about. There's another change. And I don't think that's going to stop anytime soon. I feel like that's going to be the normal for the next, maybe forever. I don't know. I mean, the world keeps moving faster and faster and faster.
I don't think we've released the episode yet, but we just had Mindy Cox, who's chief marketing officer and chief people officer at OC Tanner. And she made a comment that like, this is it, guys. We should just expect constant change.
Yeah.
And I agree with her. I think that we're not going to see a slowdown.
And I think that was Lars's last point that he made on the show about learning agility. Oh, yeah. How if you're in HR or, really in any function, that you should be prioritizing your learning because things are happening fast. The way work looks today, it's not going to look in 5 months or in 6 months. So if you're not staying up to date on what's happening, then you're going to get left behind.
Oh, for sure. And it's crazy for me to see that, like, just to receive a confidential copy of a book
Yeah.
that an HR thought leader has shared with us.
Shout out John Foster.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have a couple of others coming up.
Yeah.
That people are sharing these books with us because they know that we're having conversations, relevant conversations that, tie directly to these books that are being written.
Yeah.
Is also, I think, reflective of this growing community.
Yeah.
And to me, that's going to be, I know we're more looking back in this episode than looking forward, but more and more, I think we're going to talk about HR community, the people community, because it is growing. And that, apart from the personal joy I get recording these episodes and working with you on a daily basis again, like, I think that is the next most exciting thing for me.
Yeah. I think that part of, the reason we've been able to make so much change the last couple of years is because of the community. Mm-hmm. But, you want to get into today's topic?
Yeah,
I think, we've sort of shared that we've seen all of the change over the last 2 years since we started our podcast. And, we thought that we should reflect on 2022 and some of our biggest learnings from the year. So if you didn't see, we published an article, I guess at the time of this coming out, last week, and it's called The 8 Biggest Learnings from HR Leaders in 2022. So, let's get into it. Number 1, flexibility plus trust is the name of the game. So I feel like it's more apparent than ever that people just want to be treated like adults. They want to know that their company trusts them and they can trust their company to do what's right for them. And if they don't feel like there's alignment there, then they're quick to find a new role. We've seen all of the return to offices, RTO mandates that have gone out the last 6-12 months. And I think for the most part, for the people that enjoyed the flexibility, enjoyed working remote, enjoyed the option to go into the office a couple days a week. And I guess the big word there is like the option or the choice. I think that's really the key, like giving people the choice to decide their fate and allowing them to essentially craft their work life around their personal lives. And everybody has a unique situation. And I think the more that companies allow employees to build their work lives around their personal lives, then I feel like that's the right way to go about it.
Yeah, I agree. I think that when we were in the midst, I'm trying to like put myself back in 2020, mid to late 2020, when it was apparent that the pandemic was going to carry on.
Yeah.
That there was no clear timeline for when we were going to be able to go back into the office. I think back then I mentioned that it's like work is having, the workplace, the office is having its blockbuster moment. Like, oh shit, we may be irrelevant now. Yeah. And
so the future of work is Netflix.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And that it's a perfect analogy, because think about Netflix. I can choose whatever I want.
Yeah.
And I have full flexibility on what I want to watch.
There's an algorithm that's built for you, telling you what you're probably going to like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And here we are. And, Blockbuster fought it. Like, they did not go down swinging, and nor did like all the other institutions that were like the old school.
Yeah.
And if you think about 2022, I think there's always a fight, right? Like, and you hear news that says, oh, well, remote working is over, and this failed experiment is coming to an end, and everyone's going to go back to the office. There was a time where it really felt last year that the pendulum was swinging back. I think that's how we referred to it. And I think that is just part of a natural cycle. And I like, we don't have crystal balls, but my view is that the future, there's no going back to the way that it was. Yeah. and
That door is shut.
That door's shut. And like the question now is, do you want to be a laggard, or do you want to be on the cutting kind of innovative edge?
Yeah.
And the companies like, HubSpot and Katie Burke, she was the one that mentioned that, they didn't have all the answers, but they asked their people what they were looking for, and people wanted flexibility.
And not only did they ask their people, but they put together, and I'm gonna butcher this, but I want to say that they invited like career specialists, they invited college students, they invited senior employees, junior employees, leaders. Like they wanted to get as diverse a set of opinions as they possibly could, and from that they were going to make a decision. And they also invited in experts on different areas of work. So on remote, they invited in Darren Murph to share best practices and that type of stuff. So they put together this like almost like a future of work panel.
Yep.
And that's how they ended up doing what they ended up doing. And the way that they thought about it was thinking about it like open enrollment, but for how people want to work. So they wanted to make it as easy and seamless as possible for their employees to opt in to the style of work that works best for them. So, somebody could decide that they want to be fully remote, flex, or in the office. But it was clear to them that depending on which option they chose, that was going to be the stipend that they get. And basically they were going to have to stick with it, at least for a certain amount of time. But it was great because managers knew what to expect. They knew who was going to be flex. They knew who was going to be fully remote. They knew, who was going to be in the office all of the time. But I thought that was a really interesting way to go about it.
Yeah, and I like this learning because I don't think it's an either or conversation, and either you're working in the office or you're working remotely. And I think that's exactly what this point makes is like flexibility is the key. And, that has to be like underpinned by trust.
Yeah.
And the minute that it feels like it's punitive in any sort of way, or that you're going to be penalized, that's not going to fly with employees.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I in my LinkedIn post, I said number 1 and number 4, which we'll get to in a little while, were the big items for me in the lessons learned. But, including our most recent, conversation with Mindy, trust came up again.
Yeah.
And so I think that trust is going to be key in all this. And it's going to be fun to watch this growing kind of debate because it hasn't gone away. If anything, I feel like it's gotten more polarized. And I do believe that I think I mentioned at one point that it feels like we are evolving to like a dual labor economy, where you have
the Disneys of the world.
Right.
Yeah.
You have part of the workforce that is like prefers and wants to work in office, and part of the workforce that prefers and wants to work remotely.
Yeah.
And then you're going to have some people in between. And so it's like, who are you catering to?
Yeah.
And what is the segment of the workforce that you're looking to attract?
Yeah.
I think that's the question to ask.
Yeah. Agreed.
So number 2 was DEI and the future of work are connected. And, this was at the top of my list for a long time. And I think we had the epiphany after hearing a series of DE&I conversations that we had, that there is a relationship between psychological safety, belonging, and bias. And that these concepts, especially in the future of work conversation, seem to be repeatedly coming up.
Yeah.
And I, as we spoke more and more, I think it was an episode where it was a group episode where I think we had Darren Murph.
Was it the hybrid?
Haley.
The hybrid work.
Yes.
The impact of hybrid work on DEI.
Yes. And so in that conversation, that was another kind of moment where I was like, okay, we keep talking about, even like number 1, the point we just talked about is really focusing on where work is getting done and not how. And it's really, the how we work together that is a integral part of the DEI work that companies are doing.
Yeah.
And, some of the things that I recalled over the episodes we had was that the future of work really is leveling the playing field.
Yeah.
Because of this availability or ease of working from anywhere.
Yeah.
Particularly with
at least for
individuals
knowledge workers. Yeah.
For knowledge workers, that's right. That's a really, really, really important caveat. Yeah. But for people that have, disabilities, like they just did not have an option. And now this remote working option opens up, not only to individuals with disabilities, but also neurodivergent talent. There's just so many different ways and examples of how flexible working, remote working is leveling the playing field. And there is, with the fact that we're all digitally connected, this redefinition or redefining of belonging and rebaselining. And those were some of the things that kind of jumped out to me. And I think the last thing I'll say about this is, Darren Murph's prediction that the next frontier of work is going to be way cooler.
Yeah, and I'll give you the word for word quote. He said, "We've largely figured out how to decouple business results from physical geography and proximity, but the next frontier is way cooler."
I can't wait to see what that looks like.
Fire ass quote from Darren Murph.
For sure. But I feel like every quote from him has been pretty amazing.
And I guess I remember his next point being that for him, the next frontier is time independence. So the ability to decouple business results from linear time. And he said something to the effect of, imagine a team. And on this team, you have somebody with mobility challenges. Maybe you have a military spouse. You have several people from underrepresented minority groups. You have a caregiver and an introvert. When they're all contributing to the same Google Doc and the same size font, that's equity. Like that's, everybody feels like they have an equal voice. I don't know. I feel like that was...
Yeah, that's like that good. That's a much more eloquent way of articulating the point that I was trying to make around leveling the playing field.
Yeah,
because now we all
with
have
asynchronous work.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and there's a lot of companies out there like GitLab. We just had Julia Sofa on from Guru, who have so many. They're open sourcing how they're doing everything internally, and what's really cool is they're basically creating, for example, GitLab has a remote playbook, and they have like guidelines and best practices that they share with everyone internally. So everybody's speaking the same language and adhering to the same principles. And I think it's really leveling the playing field because everybody knows what's expected from them and, what they should be giving.
I will say, the more I've spoken to people about this particular concept, I can see there is a individual responsibility with this kind of working that you need to consume the guidelines and the parameters. Yeah. And some things that I've heard in these conversations one key point is like, well, it just feels like a lot to like, I just want to come in, I want to do my job. I don't want to have to like figure out like all of the parameters. Yeah. And
that's a good point.
And I don't agree with that and I don't work that way. And if the trade-off is flexibility, the first point we talked about, or, losing that, I would rather, dive deep into, company wiki pages and Confluence pages and understand like what the guidelines are. Yeah. But it's tough. One of the things that I have realized is that I think there is some validity to that might not be the way that everyone wants to work.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know what your thoughts are there.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about it that way. I mean, I think it just goes back to your point on there being a dual what did you say?
Dual labor. Economy.
Yeah. So if you do prefer to work the traditional way and you don't want to have to relearn this, new bicycle of work, then maybe you go work for a company that is fully in office and you don't have to adapt. I don't know. Like, if that's how you want to work, then like, who am I to tell you that that's not an okay way to work? I mean, if it works for you, then it works for you.
It's like the people that, Apple Mac versus Microsoft, operating system. Some people are like, I will never work on a Mac, no matter how cool and sexy
vice
it is.
Versa.
And vice versa. So
yeah,
interesting thought. Moving on though, because we still have a few to get to. Everyone would benefit from therapy. This is number 3.
Yeah.
Everyone would benefit from therapy, especially HR. If you've been in the HR function for over the last 3 years, you've dealt with some heavy shit. Yeah, for sure. And there is no HR for HR. That's what Kelly Keegan, VP of People at Built In, shared with us. So I fully agree. And even when there is HR for HR, it doesn't ever seem to work. Yeah. You're getting like the bottom of the barrel because the rest of the business is getting like the main focus of your HR resources. And so for me personally, this is like such a no-brainer. That's why it's not higher on my list of the top takeaways, because I've been very vocal about my life challenges, my personal journey, and therapy and therapeutic, having, therapeutic type of tools in my tool belt to become a better person. It's been so clutch. It's helped me get through really, really tough times. It's helped me get through really, really difficult times. And I'm at a point now where I'm starting to use these tools like therapy in kind of proactive ways. Whereas back in earlier periods of my life, I would have used therapy as like, shit, everything is burning around me. The sky is falling. Like
how do I dig myself out of this?
SOS, emergency. Now I'm able to kind of look forward and, consider things like couples therapy, like that my partner and I are going to, because we want to just be able to show up better for each other. There's not, the relationship is healthy, and this is something that we think could make our relationship even better. But I recognize that not everyone is there on their journey, and they, there still can be a stigma like that. People that need to go to therapy or want to go to therapy are weak, or are damaged goods, or whatever society has led us to believe. And my experience is that is categorically false.
I want to say like a few months ago, I can't remember who I was talking to, and I mentioned that I didn't really go into it, but somehow brought up like something that my therapist said or something, and the comment that they made was like, "Damn, like who hurt you?" And I'm like, nobody. Like, you don't have to like,
You're like,
be deeply damaged to go to therapy.
You don't.
But I think one of the things that really resonated with me from what Kelly had to share was that, as the VP of People at Built In, she's made an effort to talk about these types of things in public forums with everybody at Built In tuning in, and sort of addressing the common fears that people have when they go to therapy. Like, how am I going to make sure that I find the right therapist that's for me? What should I expect for that first therapy session? Like, am I going to be crying? Like, what's going to happen? So it's sort of easing their minds a bit about the experience.
Demystifying.
Yeah, because it's scary to take the plunge and actually do it. Even really speaking for myself, like going for the first time, I was like, I have no idea what I'm getting myself into, but I feel like this will be good for me, and it has been. But she highly recommends leaders out there, if you are going to therapy, to talk about this. Like, just simply like mentioning this in an all hands meeting when talking about the topic of mental health, I think will make people feel more comfortable with the idea of therapy. If maybe they've been, on the cusp, like they just needed like that extra little push. If they need you to come out and say that you're going to therapy, like maybe that's what they need. I don't know.
It's hard taking on the responsibility of people's jobs and livelihood. And I know that might not actually be, what HR's job function is, but that's what it feels like. It feels like you are personally responsible for your employees, and whether or not they have employment at the company, it's what's paying the bills. And these are people with families, these are caregivers, these are parents, and that responsibility, especially in times like now when companies, it's like layoffs after layoffs after layoffs. Like this week alone, there have been at least, Goldman Sachs, Lattice, there have been Oyster, there have been so many companies that have announced. And I think I'm not picking on those organizations, but it seems to be a never ending stream right now.
Yeah.
And we should have an entire session on what happens when a company goes through a reduction in force.
Yeah.
Because it is so stressful, and it just weighs on a lot. For anyone that's been through that, I have, and it's something you'll never forget just because of how horrible it is and the impact that it has on so many lives. And so just from that alone, just thinking about that one slither of the responsibilities we have in HR, like it's a no-brainer for me, but I get that, we still need to keep talking about it.
Yeah.
And so hopefully we can find the time and space in 2023 to talk about this a little more.
Yeah, maybe this is the topic of one of our group chats that we end up having this year. I feel like a lot of HR leaders are having to go through this right now. And if we can bring a few people leaders on to talk about their experience and what this looks like, I think we definitely should. So what's number 4. Up? The employee experience is a product that your company is selling.
Boom.
Yeah.
This is my other one that the number 1, and I said number 4.
Yeah.
That still has my mind expanding when I think about it.
Same. So we had Jessica Zwan on this show, I guess in late November, early December. I can't really remember, but she's writing a book right now, or the book's finished. I think it publishes soon, like the next month or two. Anyway, she's been speaking on this topic for a couple of years now, and the topic is how your employee experience is a product, or people operations as a product. And she says that every company is building 3 products at any given time. The first 2 are what they're selling to customers, whether that's software or bricks or Snicker bars. And, the second product is what you're selling to investors. The last one, which usually the chief people officer is responsible for, is the product that you're selling to your employees. And she says that people leaders need to start thinking about the product they're building and selling as a subscription product, because employees can choose to continue or cancel their subscription whenever they want. And I don't know.
It's that Netflix analogy again.
Yeah. This is one of the episodes that I frequently find myself coming back to, whether I'm, sitting on the couch at home, just thinking about all of the conversations that we had, and I guess like what's stuck with me the most. I always keep coming back to this episode.
Yeah, looking at the employee experience as a product is I think one of the more innovative things that that I have challenged myself on, because when I first, there's been a lot of buzz over the last 2 years around people operations and what people ops versus HR, traditional HR, and I feel like sometimes you can get lost in the buzzwords. And what I love about Jessica's work is she has made it so, she simplified this, and using the product example is something that we can all relate to. And in looking at the employee experience as a product that should be tested and should be examined and should be iterated and should be improved upon, and that should not be static. Yeah. So many companies out there have an employee experience that's static, that hasn't changed in years, if not decades. And they may tinker with it, they may throw some bells and whistles in, but the actual experience itself hasn't changed. And I think what we're seeing is like this whole new branch of human resources that want to challenge that. And I always think back to my partner, Sarah. She works for a 12,000 employee company. They are in the tech space, and they required all their HR team members to go through Agile training.
Yeah.
And without any context, without really any goals or objectives, they were like, hey, we want to be better at HR. We want to be more Agile. Everyone take this training. They all take it, and they have no practical way of applying it to their jobs. And what I love about this concept that Jessica is promoting, looking at people operations as the responsible group for managing and owning this third product, your employee experience, starts to take things like Agile and make so much more tangible sense out of it.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, when you hear Agile HR, you're like, what does that really mean?
What does that mean? Yeah.
Yeah, but when you hear, people operations as a product, you're like, okay, that makes sense. You're applying Agile, methodologies to people operations.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It sounds so simple.
And I guess Agile HR means the same thing, but I don't know.
But it is, I think with every kind of philosophy or theory, until there's like a practical application of it, it's hard to gain momentum and popularity. Yeah. And hopefully this is the moment. 2023 is a year that more and more companies are taking this practical application of Agile.
So if you want to learn more about that, there's an article that she wrote on her Medium a couple of years ago that is great. I recommend you checking that out. And then she has a book that's coming out soon.
Yeah, keep an eye out for the book.
Yeah. All right, let's keep it moving. So number 5, the role of the CHRO is really hard. I put really effing hard. Yeah, really effing hard, and not going to get any easier. And I pulled this quote from Jackson Lynch, and he said, if you ask 10 different boards to give you a definition of what a CHRO does, they'll give you 10 different answers. If you ask those same 10 boards what a CFO does, you'll get general agreement. And he said, not only has the job description never been clear enough, but HR leaders are being asked to map out the future of work, all while balancing the wide range of perspectives of their employees, managers, executives, and boards. And I think Ciara said something similar about, I guess, like navigating uncertain times, and how as an HR leader, you have to balance all of the opinions that are coming in. Mm-hmm. It's a tough job. It's a really tough job.
Yeah, I've often asked myself, like, if I wasn't, when I'm not CEO of a HR tech startup, like, what would be my next move, and would I consider being a CHRO? And I think it would be a really hard thing for me to agree to. Particularly having these conversations that we do weekly with CHROs and chief people officers. Look, I think the job is going to get harder. I don't think it's going to get easier. And the reason I say that is when you are in a cash-rich environment, it's easy to throw money at problems. And the last 3 years, we have been in an environment where money was not hard to come by. We had, economic cycles that were unexpected that dumped even more money into the economy. And so it got really easy to solve the issues, people issues, with some sort of monetary solution. I think that's partly why we've seen the flurry and the frothy wage increases in wages over the last year. Because rather than solving some of the tough questions that people were asking their companies, other organizations were throwing money out and winning because of that. When you no longer have the ability to solve people problems with just money, you have to look at more challenging metrics like profitability.
Yeah.
And I remember one of the things that Jackson Lynch, who we had on the show, you mentioned, how he called out the variability in the job description of a CHRO. The other thing he mentioned was the need to be able to focus on a P&L and to be able to manage a business profitably. And, every time, embedded in the LinkedIn posts from CEOs of companies that are laying off employees, you can there's usually one or two paragraphs in these letters that these CEOs are sharing on LinkedIn that they've sent to their employees that is specifically speaking to needing to focus on profitability.
Yeah.
And and that is really, as the CEO of a bootstrap non-venture backed startup, that has had to run on that's self-funded and has had to operate profitably for the last 4 years. Doing it for 1 year is hard enough.
Yeah.
And it just is a completely different mindset. And my fear on this one, the reason why I say it's going to be more difficult is because it's such a 180 switch from the market that we've been operating to this change in focus. The market that we've been operating has been grow at all costs. Doesn't matter, just grow. We got to win. We got to get the best talent, to now still needing to get the best talent, but you got to be careful with cash and we need to be profitable. Yeah. So those are very different skill sets. And I think it was also Jackson who cautioned that there may not be enough experienced CHROs out there that have managed a business, their people business, this way, the way that we're going to need to in 2023.
That might have been Beth Steinberg as well. I feel like we talked about this with several people. But and adding on to everything that you just said, people leaders haven't been able to catch a break. No. It's like nonstop. There's something every month. There's a new fire to put out. There's a new global, crisis to confront. Every month has presented itself with something brand new that HR leaders need to address. And it's hard being a strategic HR leader when you're constantly putting out fires. So, and I think Kelly Keegan was saying she thinks that what's going to separate the best people teams from everyone else are the ones that are able to balance the proactive versus reactive work. And then we briefly we touched on this earlier, just speaking on the community aspect of it. But Sada, who we had on the show at the end of the year from TBLX, she shared that she was exhausted, and that I think the way she put it, she said we're in a human energy crisis, and right now all of her human energy was drained. And the only thing, like after exhausting all of her other resources and options, that recharged her human energy was getting together with her local HR network. And they spent some time talking about the different challenges that their companies were going through. But she said for the most part, they were just checking in on one another. Like, how are you doing? Like, it's a tough time right now. I mean, as you said, there have been a ton of layoffs. And I think the way Lars put it, he said, if you're going to come into HR from another function, you need to come in with eyes wide open. Because, for lack of a better term, you're usually the ones that are executing things like layoffs. Yep. And having to do these really difficult things that aren't the most fun, but that I guess have to be done.
And it takes a lot of courage. And look, we can talk about this, just you and I. Yeah. Because we are not CHROs and we don't have bosses that might listen to our episode. Yeah. But there are always conversations outside of the interviews that we have, that we share with you, and that we can't include on recordings because obviously, for obvious reasons, but HR continues to be a dumping ground for problems, and it isn't always in the job description. most often there are things that are absolutely not in our job description that we have to deal with. And we're also dealing with demanding boards, demanding bosses, and those are additional stressors that we don't talk about on the show.
Yeah.
And we don't get into for a lot of reasons, but between the two of us, like, those are, the things that we're mentioning are just the things that, the known knowns, right? The things that
I'm sure there's way more that goes on that.
Absolutely. If we could be a fly on the wall, my God, we would be shocked at what the CHRO is dealing with in the full scope of their job, not just the actual job description.
Yeah.
So, your point on, Sada's comments on her local HR network, I saw a great post this afternoon on LinkedIn that spoke to groups that are out there. People Tech is one of the groups that that we're aware of, that we have personal contacts with. Groups like that, seek out your networks and talk to people, because I don't think we're going to get a break. And to the point here, it's really effing hard, and it's not going to get easier.
Yeah.
Next point, moving on, because we got a few more. Gen Z. We talked a lot about Gen Z, particularly in the back half of the year. I feel like, around summertime, we had a riff on Gen Z. I think we tore down an article about, the unique aspects of, Gen Z. The metric that we have here is that by 2025, Gen Z will make up 27% of the workforce, almost a third of the workforce in 2 years. And we're talking about...
Shout out Mateo. That's my little brother.
We're talking about a generation that has a lot of similar characteristics of millennials, but has a lot of unique characteristics.
Yeah.
And, the lesson learned here is that Gen Z isn't afraid to ask for the things that we've always wanted, which is ironic for me, because I remember thinking that about that. I remember thinking that way about millennials.
Yeah.
Like, damn, I always wanted I always wanted to more work-life flexibility, but that wasn't ever an option.
Yeah.
And so
I feel like, for the most part, traditionally, it's like you just wanted a job to pay the bills and you were happy with that.
Yes. Yeah, the way that I was raised was like, Steven, get the best job you can and you stick with it for as long as you possibly can.
Yeah.
And then you're watching people leave the job, getting promotions, getting raises, and you're like, oh man, like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
And now here we are, like, the average tenure is shrinking even further.
Yeah.
We just got out of the largest attrition event, turnover event in, modern work. And, we have a generation that is coming in hot, and they have even more and even different expectations. And so for me, I am over the, why is it different for this generation than it was for mine? And it's like, what are the key takeaways here? Because this isn't going to stop. Like, we've got Gen Z coming in hot right now. In 5-10 years, Gen Alpha, my two daughters, and seeing how they learn at school, seeing how they live their lives, I can tell you that it's going to get even, they're going to be even higher expectations.
Yeah.
This isn't a, a blip on kind of in trends. I think increasingly we're going to see generation after generation is going to bring a whole new unique attitude that will, if you want to be effective in recruiting and retaining, you're going to have to cater to.
Yeah, I agree. And I think this came out of the group episode that we did with Steve Cadigan, Stephanie Kramer, and was it Hallie Bregman, or was she on the other one? I'm probably mixing up the guests, but the topic was Gen Z and how they're going to change work. And I think one of the points that was made was if you want to position yourself as the employer of choice or as an employer of choice for Gen Z, you need to give people flexibility, a wide variety of experiences. So think, giving them different bosses, different projects, letting them move around in the company and work for different departments. That's all very important to them. You also need to champion mental health. You need to care and speak out about what's happening in the world. So you can't just stay silent on what's happening all around us, because if you completely ignore it and act like everything's, completely fine, that's really ticks off Gen Z. I think some have called them the most idealistic generation yet, because they expect all of these things. And, to your point, like, are they asking for too much? I don't think so. Like, I say it's about time. I think Steve was saying it's not only Gen Z that wants these things. These are things that we've all wanted for a long time. Mm-hmm. We just were too afraid to ask.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that. That being said, will there be backlash to these heightened levels of expectations that Gen Z are bringing to the workplace? What do you think?
What do you mean by backlash? Like backlash from resistance from the companies?
Yeah. Resistance from the man.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like we're seeing it in some places. Mm-hmm. And it feels like, for the most part, it's these really well-established organizations, these behemoths, like these huge companies, where they're resisting here and there, whether that's through a return to office mandate or, things of that nature. But I don't know how much resisting you can do.
Yeah, I think the brands that resist and are successful are going to have some unique quality or attribute about that brand. Either they're so sexy,
like Disney.
Right.
Yeah.
Or it's such a cool place that, that I would work there, even though they're an exception to the benefits. Right.
Even though, I don't agree with everything that they do as a company, internally, like, that attracts a certain type of person. Like, right. The prospect of working for SpaceX is exciting, and they'll do whatever it takes to work there.
Or like companies in the travel industry, like, if Gen Z are, if what I'm reading, if I'm interpreting what I'm reading correctly, then, the ability to travel on a whim and do all these different things, that is a huge perk that I would sign up for some BS old school policies.
Yeah.
If, I have this flexibility, this sweet perk.
Yeah.
I think that's what the point I'm trying to make is.
Yeah.
I think there will be some that are resisting the Gen Z demands, but those are, few and far between. And I think the vast majority of companies are going to either have to get on board, or they're going to find it very difficult to attract the talent they want.
Yeah. And the last point that I'll make on Gen Z is that they're becoming known as the most entrepreneurial generation ever. 62% of Gen Zers have indicated that they have either started or intend to start their own business. And Steve Cadigan, I think it was him that said this, that Gen Z has more pathways, platforms, and opportunities to work for themselves than ever before. And they aren't afraid to take the leap in entrepreneurship. And for me, I'm not Gen Z. I'm just outside of that. I'm millennial. But I think about myself when I read that.
Yeah.
I
think you're a cusper. And that's how I always describe myself with Gen X, is there's certain attributes of of millennials that that really hit home for me, but I was born in I'm Gen X from a definition standpoint.
Yeah. For me, I see people like Dave Gerhardt in the marketing space, or Lars in the HR space, build their own communities, or,
entrepreneurial platforms.
Yeah. I don't want to say audiences, but have carved out a little piece of whatever industry they're in, and are able to, become solopreneurs and run small businesses that replace the salaries that they were making in a traditional 9-to-5, and they're happy. They're being creative. There's many different ways to make money, whether that's through sponsorships, or if you're a YouTube creator through ads, or if you're on TikTok. There's so many TikTok influencers that have, agents now and are making a good amount of money there as well. Like, there's so many for creators out there. There are so many ways to support yourself, and I think that that's front and center for many people in Gen Z, because that's all they've ever known.
Well, and the younger generations know that if you say, oh, you can't just start your own company and expect to be successful, they know that that's false.
Yeah.
Because there are examples of peers,
And there's businesses that you can start that require no capital.
Right.
Yeah, that you can start on your own as,
and there are
a side project.
There are tech stacks that will literally allow you to create a product overnight if you know how to use them.
Yeah, exactly. And you can figure out anything using Google. I think that helps a lot too.
And now with the AI tools, they make it even easier.
Yeah. I actually tested out an AI tool for the first time for the podcast last week. So
the related posts that we're talking about.
Yes, for this article that we wrote on the 8 biggest learnings, I was struggling to find a cover image that went with the article, and that's when it occurred to me, well, there's all of these new tools. There's Dolly that I could try. Unfortunately, Dolly was bugging out on me and wasn't working. So then I found this tool called Jasper.ai, which I'll give a plug for. I don't get anything for it, but I thought it was pretty cool. It's AI copywriting and art for marketers. So if you're a marketer and you need to write ad copy, you need to write a blog post, use Jasper. Also, you can take any image from the internet, upload it into Jasper, and say, I want this to be in the style of art, and I don't know, there's like 4 or 5 options that it gives you, and it'll spit out 4 or 5 images, and then you can choose which one you like. So that's how I ended up on the image that I chose.
And I love that. And Gen Z, like the younger generations, know that. They know that you can do this.
Yeah.
And that's why, in many ways, like, you can't stop this movement. And that absolutely excites me. It's terrifying on one hand, but it's pretty exciting on the other hand.
Yeah.
Moving on, because we literally have had full episodes about Gen Z.
This might be one of our longer episodes ever, so apologies, but also if you're enjoying it, you're welcome. I don't know.
Yeah, it could go either way. It's questionable. Number 7, people are rethinking their purpose portfolios and are looking for balance. So this is what I briefly touched on earlier. Darren Murph mentioned that everyone has a purpose portfolio. Work is one stock in that portfolio, but if you only invest in work, it's misallocated, right? It's unbalanced portfolio, and people are realizing that they haven't invested in other areas and they need to. Yeah. And so, in the pie chart of my purpose portfolio, probably 80% at times has been work. Yeah. And it's like, what the fuck was I thinking? Yeah. But that's where I was in those points in my life. Yeah. And those were different times. And so now what I love about the purpose portfolio, again, it's a very simple way of looking at a more complex, concept. And because I think we can all agree that we've got a finite amount of time.
Yeah.
And that there is a huge opportunity cost to my time. Like, that extra hour, 2 hours that I put in at work, I could be at the gym.
Yeah.
I could be, focusing on my physical well-being, staying in shape. And for me, I need to be physically healthy if I'm going to be mentally healthy. Yep. And if I'm going to operate in what I call my prime, like that.
So at risk of sounding like a crazy person, and I'm not advocating for people living their lives based off of a spreadsheet, but I have like this weird thing that I've been doing for, I think, 4 or 5 months now. And I have this master spreadsheet with different tabs that represent different areas of my life. So I have a tab for business. I have a tab for fitness. I have a tab for mental well-being. And in all of these different tabs, I'm tracking the amount of time that I'm putting into each of these different areas of my life. So, I track the amount of time that I'm exercising every day. I'm tracking the amount of time that I'm working every day. I'm tracking what I'm doing when I'm working, like the stuff that I'm dedicating the most time to. I'm tracking whether I've, meditated every day. I'm
What
tracking
a renaissance,
if
man.
I'm stretching every day.
Yeah.
I don't know. I sound like a crazy person. I know I do, but it
No.
works for me. And because I have all of this data on any given week, I can tell you, what my purpose portfolio is looking like. And, as a part of that, I track overall how I'm feeling. And maybe if I'm feeling down one week, I'm like, maybe I need to hang out with my friends more. Maybe, Tori and I, my wife, need to go do a date night. Like maybe, it gets me thinking, like whenever I'm able to see these data points, I'm able to identify where in my purpose portfolio I could be putting more time to be happier. Because at the end of the day, I think you told me this once, we were criticizing, maybe I was criticizing somebody and I shouldn't have been. And you were like, hey, at the end of the day, that person's just trying to be happy just like you.
Yeah.
And I've never been able to get that out of my head.
Yeah, we experience things differently, and we apply our own bias and our lens to how we see the world. I don't think that's crazy at all. I think what probably sounds more crazy is that I do a version of that with pen and pencil or pen and paper. Like I write it down, and for me, so that's probably more crazy sounding to our audience than your spreadsheet. But for me, there's like something magical that happens when I put pen to paper and I like write things down. But look, life is short, and I think the thing that I got on board with during the pandemic is like, what if things never go back to the way they were?
Yeah.
And I squandered all this fucking time because I thought work was, the path forward, and I'm never going to be able to do these things that I really wanted to do. And it really got me rethinking like, what the heck am I doing? And so now, like, I think this is the default way of thinking. And I think the role that work plays in that purpose portfolio is shrinking.
I think what's happened is we've been able to show ourselves that it's possible to have a balanced purpose portfolio.
And, some out there, some of you may be listening and thinking, well, this is why we're losing our competitive advantage as a country. This is why, we're losing our edge, and like, we're seeing all these various things. And, I things have to change, right? Change is the only constant. And so, as, the way that we are looking at our how we spend our time evolves, the work that we do and our ability to contribute in meaningful and positive ways has to evolve as well. And I think, one assumption in this is when I work, I'm going all in on work. And I can say that for myself. Is that happening at scale, at large? I don't know. And so I think there are like societal factors and implications that we're not thinking about. But I think, in general, the purpose portfolio is a great way of looking at your life and reassessing what's important for you.
Yeah. And I think that's the perfect segue into number 8, which is really just a few quotes on career advice from the guests that we've had on. Mm-hmm. And the one that immediately, jumps out at me is from Kara at Lattice, and it's get a hobby. She said, when you're starting out, there are so many messages to double down and just focus on the job. But what's super interesting to me is the leaders that I've liked working with the best and that are the most successful tend to be people who have actually lived a life. I've worked with Olympic divers, ballroom dancers, and violinists. These are the kind of things that make you an interesting human being. give you good perspective, and teach you lessons that will allow you to continue to connect with other people.
Yeah, and the one that I love here is be a lifelong learner. And it's kind of what I was just saying, that what brought us here won't take us into the future. And I find solace in that. The full quote from, this is Melissa Hornick at Kraft Heinz. She said, learn from the past, but always be looking ahead. Historical success is not a synonym of future success. And I think that's so true. Yeah. That, we've got to evolve as individual humans and as like collective, humankind.
Yeah.
We've got to continue learning, and because the future is dependent on it.
Yeah. And then the last two were from Amy Lavoie and Jim Bartolomea. And Amy's was, you don't need a plan, and Jim's was, it's just work. I feel like this all keeps pointing back to the purpose portfolio. But yeah, no, on Amy's, it was, you don't need to have a plan. And I think Lars said something similar when he joined us on the last episode about how you should think about your career in 1 to 2 year increments, because if you have a 5 to 10 year plan, like that's great, but you're going to miss out on opportunities. If you see an opportunity that's interesting, you might turn it down because it's deviating from that master plan. And I think that was a trend, or a common theme that we heard from the responses that we got to that question. And yeah, I feel like a lot of the HR leaders we've talked to have non-linear career paths. And I'm thinking about, my former coworker, Liz Foslin, who I'm sure a lot of you have seen her illustrations on LinkedIn.
They're amazing.
And yesterday she posted one. I wish I had it on me right now, but it was like, it was an illustration on non-linear career paths, and there was a dot on the upper right that said, like really cool, and it was a bubble that was really far away from the linear path. And her point was, you're missing out, or either you're missing out on something really cool by sticking to that linear path, or you're doing something really cool.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, those were the 8. Any final thoughts before we wrap it this episode, which I think this is our longest one-on-one riff episode?
I don't know. I feel like this is one of the more fun episodes that we've done. I say this every time we do like an in-person podcast because we haven't done many, but I love, sitting here on the couch and doing this. It adds another, element to the podcast. So, I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, I had a lot of fun. I do have one last bonus thought, and I think it started trending late in the year. I would say like October, November, we started hearing it from our guests, and it was like in our rapid fire questions, we asked like, if you had a magic wand, what people problem would you solve? And in October, November, we started hearing it like HR tech is still broken.
Yeah. And
it just is not meeting the needs. And so I'm, we economic cycles are interesting things. And, there's a view that some of the best technologies, some of the best innovation, not even technology, just innovation period, happens in down markets, in difficult times. Yeah. And so I am putting this out there for the audience members that might be working on a new startup or
thinking about doing it.
Yeah. And just going back to the comment you made from Liz's illustration, like, maybe you should take that jump and jump off the linear path and go explore, this great idea you have, because we need it. I think I would agree that we still, HR tech, we, being my own company included, we still aren't solving the biggest people team problems out there.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why. I have my own personal beliefs and biases as to why. But, as we look forward to 2023, that is something I'm hoping that we can talk about. And so for those of you that have strong opinions or strong ideas, or people leaders that, have a vision for a different way, hit us up. That's something personally that I would love to talk about.
Or if you're really happy with your HR tech stack and you feel like the companies that you've partnered with are really ahead of the game, also let us know. We'd love to hear about those companies too. And the only other thing I want to add before we do one word closes, I just want to do a quick plug for what's to come for 2023.
Yeah,
this is all off top, so I'm going to miss a ton of guests that we're going to have on, but we're going to have guests from VCs. We're going to have companies like Coursera, GoDaddy, Gusto. I'm blanking on all the other
Some
ones.
of the biggest, we have a couple of the biggest thought leaders in HR and HR tech, like the OGs are joining us.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I don't want spoiler alerts.
Yeah.
But we have like big names, which again, I'm hashtag grateful and hashtag humbled that we, these individuals are reaching out to us.
Yeah, me too. I'm really looking forward to it, and yeah.
And it wouldn't be possible if you guys weren't listening to us. So I'm also very grateful for the audience that we've been able to build, and the fact that people are listening to what we have to share and what our guests have to share has really been an amazing thing. So
yeah. Well, on that note, you want to do some one word closes?
I'm ready. Yeah, I'm gonna come in hot with community.
Okay. I'm gonna say purpose portfolio.
Purpose portfolio.
Everybody, look at your purpose portfolio.
Yeah, get your spreadsheet going, guys.
You don't need a spreadsheet. I'm just psycho, but yeah, great episode, Steven.
Yeah, well done.
Happy Friday the 13th, everybody.
Yeah.
I guess when this airs, it won't be Friday the 13th, but
here we are doing positive things on a.
We sure are.
On a historically sketchy day to do.
Hey,
things.
I was born on Friday the 13th,
Were
so
you?
I was.
I don't think I knew that.
Yeah, May the 13th.
There you go. All right, guys. Talk to you soon.